Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the BJJ Foxcast. I'm your host, Alex Martinez, and today I have Doug Moore on the show. Doug is known by many people as my rival. I call him my man crush. Doug, thanks for doing this, man. Welcome to the show.
Great, thanks for the invite.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So you and I share the competition mats frequently.
A lot.
And
yes.
and I get a lot of good feedback from it. A lot of people have fun with it. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I honestly didn't know what I was getting into the first time you and I competed. It was at that Fight to Win.
Yes.
And I was like a brand new black belt.
Yeah.
And you look so freaking calm. I was like, how is this guy so freaking calm right before competition time? But you were.
Well, that may have been on the inside or the outside because I get super nervous for stuff like that.
Do you really?
Yeah. So I did. People ask me all the time for regular competitions, like, do you still get nervous? Because I've been doing it for 20 years.
Yeah.
When I started jiu-jitsu in 2002, I competed 2 months later.
Yeah. Get a little bit closer to the mic. Yeah.
So
cool.
I competed 2 months after I started 20 years ago, and I was a nervous wreck.
You competed 2 months after you started jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, it was at a tournament called Desert Quest. Some of your listeners may have heard of it. It's no longer around because it was a total pile of garbage tournament. I mean, they had white belts as referees. And,
oh gosh,
it was terrible. My first match, I barely won. The second one, they put me in against a four-stripe black belt, who's a Gustavo guy, Mike Chen or Mike. Can't think of his name, but I still talk to him occasionally. But he's a Phoenix police officer, great guy.
Yeah.
And he triangled me in like 3 seconds, probably. But it was a good learning experience. But they asked me, do you still get nervous? And I said, not as much as I used to. I used to become a nervous wreck. And when I started doing MMA a few years later, that's a whole nother level of nerves.
I can imagine.
So going back from that to regular jiu-jitsu, I don't get as nervous, with the exception of the Fight to Wins.
Yeah.
Because, it's more like an MMA type environment with the crowds and the production. And, Seth really does a good job with those.
Yeah, he does.
So, I may have looked calm on the outside, but I was pissing myself on the inside. Literally, you can ask Nathan. He's with me for all that stuff. And I'm backstage, because you're in front of however many people. And, we all want to try to do well.
Yeah.
But I was a nervous wreck before that thing. So.
The only thing I think about when I'm doing those Fight to Wins is just don't be a highlight reel.
Yeah.
Just, you know what I mean?
I know.
Win or lose, I can handle losing, but gosh, man, being a big throw or something like that. And, I was of course, you want to ask about your opponents. Anybody who's ever, fought you. You've been around a long time.
Sure.
You've been in the jiu-jitsu community a long time. Nobody would tell me a straight answer with you.
Oh, really?
Because okay, first of all, they were like, don't shoot because he's got wrestling. Don't stand up straight because he's got judo. And don't pull guard because his guard pass is awesome. I'm like, okay, so what, do I just quit? Like,
I think all of that was a gross exaggeration, but I've made my mistakes throughout the years with, judo, thinking I was a judo guy. And, I became a highlight reel in one of my brown belt matches here locally and got bombed. And, so I try to tweak little things here and there. But,
sure.
You and I, we've talked about this before, you've really motivated me again to train harder now, because I've seen, from the first time we met to the last time we met, when you put the beating on me, I realized, like, I have to be in better shape and, take it more seriously and train harder. Because sometimes, we go in there and, and we're kind of like, but not anymore. So you've been a great motivator for me, because now,
thanks, man.
Now I'm pushing my cardio a lot harder.
You can quit that anytime you want.
Yeah. Well, I was going to tell you, I was going to be like, no, I'm not going to compete, and then text you the day before. Yeah, I decided to compete, so you'll take your foot off the gas. But you've been a great motivator for me.
Thanks, man.
There's other guys that we've competed against 1,000 times at our age in our bracket that I would say I'd maybe not taken as seriously.
Yeah.
But so having you as my nemesis now, a friendly nemesis, makes it a lot more motivating for me.
Yeah, so. and that's part of the reason I wanted to get you on the podcast, because we talk about being competitive, and jiu-jitsu's changing so freaking much. Like I had Samir Chantre on the show, and he was saying that 10 years in jiu-jitsu might as well be 1,000 years, in real life, because it changes so much. And of course, like, the level of competition is changing, the techniques are changing, they're evolving. And you've been doing this a really long time. How do you keep up with like everything, all the evolution of the sport and how things have changed? Like, what is your approach to like, next year is going to be whatever. Do you change like do you change things in your diet? Do you change things in your training schedule? How do you adapt?
Well, I don't try to be like I call them YouTubers where, I think we all, and you have a school yourself where, you have your new students who want to be, they're watching all the YouTube stuff, watching Samir and those guys on YouTube, and they're like, oh, I want to do that shit. I want to do that. And I'm like, you can't even pass a guard yet. You know what I mean? It's like, you need to calm down. It's like when I first started playing guitar when I was like 14, they told me, because I wanted to just be a shredder. Because I used to listen to, this is going to be embarrassing. You guys are going to make fun of me, but I used to listen to 80s hair band music.
Right, yeah, we all did, yeah.
And so I wanted to be one of those guitar shredders and all this. And the guy was like, calm down. You need to slow down to get faster.
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu is the same way. So I don't try to, to change what I go, what I think I'm better at. I don't, I know I'm not the most athletic guy in the world, so I'm not going to be doing all these crazy somersault backflip passes and all this stuff. I incrementally, like competing with you and stuff like that. You like to do De La Riva guard a lot. And then I like to pass with that backhand. I always pass to my opponent's right, which sets me up for that omoplata that you stick me in all the time. But I have a guy that I train with that likes to do that as well. Nice. So little tweaks like that. I just try to adapt incrementally. And try to tweak. I don't try to go, this year I'm gonna, all of a sudden I'm gonna be a De La Riva guy.
Right.
And next year I'm gonna be a turtle guard and all this kind of stuff. So,
it doesn't work that way.
Yeah. And then like I was saying before, competing against you has forced me to change my diet and eat a little cleaner. Because one, I'm almost 50. Yeah. So recovery and all that stuff.
It's so hard.
Yeah. The diet is drastic. And fortunately for me, my wife is a godsend when it comes to that stuff. She eats cleaner than anybody I've ever seen all year round.
Wow.
Like she doesn't, the only time she eats bad food is like if I give her candy. And I have a bad sweet tooth, really bad sweet tooth. I actually was going to bring some Pez in here and see. I don't know if you like candy or not, but
yeah, I do.
So I'll eat candy.
Yeah.
She'll be eating Brussels sprouts. We're watching a TV show and she'll be sitting to my right eating Brussels sprouts. And I'm eating candy. So that's the only time she'll take one little piece and eat it or something. Gotcha. But other than that, she's, great about it. And it forces me to, or it enables me to do that. Because if I had somebody at my house that was, eating cheeseburgers and all that kind of stuff all the time, it would be 10 times harder. But so my diet's cleaned up considerably, not perfect, but I still eat the candy bars and the candy. But that's my vice is candy. It's It's not,
Yeah, because you don't drink, you don't do any of that. So candy is your thing.
Yeah, I've never smoked. Fortunately, it's too hard to breathe now. Anyway, I've never been a big drinker.
Yeah,
I mean, we probably drink twice a year, maybe.
Yeah.
Like the other night, I think we had a drink with dinner when we went out. But other than that, I just don't. It doesn't do much for me. And jiu-jitsu is actually what caused me to not party with my friends. When I started, I was 28.
Yeah.
So back then I wasn't married, and so we were clubbing and stuff like that. And the next day I would go try to train and just be like, man, I feel like shit. Like I can't recover. Like I feel like I got dirt in my mouth and dehydrated. And I realized it was the drinking from the night before. So I pretty much stopped drinking.
Oh, that's good.
I stopped partying with my friends. I mean, I've never done drugs. I got stories about friends. We all have our jiu-jitsu friends or super potheads and all that stuff, but that stuff just doesn't work for my body. It just I turn into a zombie if I do that stuff, especially the stuff they got nowadays.
Oh my gosh.
The weed.
Forget about it.
When I was in high school, you'd smoke a joint or something and it was different. Now that stuff is nuclear compared to that stuff.
Yeah, there's engineering going on now. Yeah, that's very different.
It would probably kill me if I tried to do that, but it's relatively clean. So
that's good. That's good. So tell me how did you find jiu-jitsu? How did that happen at 28 years old? I mean,
so I was always a fan of MMA.
Yep.
When my son was born, I was pretty young when my son was born. I was 18.
Wow.
We moved from Colorado to here. And I remember we were watching TV, and I saw some advertisement about the UFC. This
Yeah.
was like 1994, I think it was.
Yeah.
So I was already a year or two removed from it.
Yeah.
And coincidentally, I moved from Colorado, and the first UFC event was in Denver.
Oh, no way.
So I've always been a fan of some sort of combat sports. Like I used to watch like kickboxing and stuff like that on TV whenever I could afford it.
Yep.
So when the UFC came out, I was fascinated by it because I thought, back then all the karate movies were big, and
Yep.
Jean-Claude Van Damme and Chuck Norris and all that, and everyone thought their style was the best. So when this came out, to see how everyone just got thrown in the pot and whoever came out first, and I remember seeing Royce, just like this is probably everybody's story.
Sure.
Where Royce, this little he's like our size. He's like 180 pounds.
Yeah.
And he goes out there and strangles these guys. And I remember seeing Chemo.
Yep.
I don't know if you remember Chemo.
Yeah, I do.
Just jacked to the
Yep.
gills and the hair. And I go, oh, that guy's going to kill that guy.
Yes.
I go, this is
was
going to
huge.
Yeah. I go, this is going to be a bloodbath.
Yeah.
And he choked him out. And my first response wasn't, I got to learn that stuff. It was, it's rigged. I honestly thought it was rigged. I go, this is bullshit.
There's no way this is real.
Yeah, I go, come on, it's rigged. Because, boxing has been accused of being rigged for decades.
Yeah.
So that was my first response. And then, so I remember going to Blockbuster, and you can rent them occasionally.
Yes.
And because the internet wasn't even around
Right.
then.
Yeah.
At least not to my simple brain.
Yeah.
So I would rent the VHS tapes, and and they were in that little section in
Yep.
the very back of the room.
Very obscure.
Yeah, it was almost like you were looking for porn or something. You're kind of walking back there, and everyone's like, "What are you doing back there?"
Weirdo
Yeah, what are you doing, you little weirdo? But it's like, no, calm down. It's just jiu-jitsu or whatever. But I remember, so I was watching those, and I was just like, "What in the hell is this stuff where this guy, half these guys' size, is strangling these guys?" And I saw Ken Shamrock too, just juiced.
Yeah.
And he got strangled. I go, I got to learn that.
Yeah.
The problem was I didn't have a computer or the internet back then.
Right.
So I just was a fan, and you'd wrestle with your friends and stuff like that here and there. But when I got my first computer, this is another embarrassing fact that, it was late in the game.
Yeah.
It was 2001 when I got my first computer.
Okay.
The first thing I started looking up was music, file sharing and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of stealing music. And then two was like martial arts and stuff like that. Because I've always been, I don't know if you call me an athlete, but I've always been athletic and like to do athletic things. So I wanted to do Gracie Jiu Jitsu because at the time,
That was the thing.
That was all I knew.
Yeah, that was the thing.
Now, the newbies go, "Oh, do you do Gracie Jiu Jitsu?" I'm like, "Yeah, but that doesn't mean anything. It's like wearing a pair of Nikes.
Right.
Adidas are just as good, and or if not better.
Right.
But I go, so I searched Gracie Jiu Jitsu, and Nathan and Megaton, I think were the only two. I think Gustavo pulled up, but it wasn't. It was something else.
Yeah.
So I called Nathan, and I didn't know what to expect. I like we talked about, I was pissing my pants. I'm kind of a big wuss, actually. On the inside, I just try not to show it as much.
Well, you do a great job.
Guys at work and guys at jiu-jitsu tease me all the time about my all my little wimpy things, like my attributes that I have. I'm afraid of heights. I hate snakes. I get motion sickness. It goes on and on. And they go, it's a good thing you can fight because you are really a pussy on the inside. So, but anyway, so so I called Nathan, and I really thought it was like those old karate movies where you walk into a dojo, because I've never done anything.
Right.
Wrestling, nothing.
Yeah.
I walked into the school expecting to, basically get beat up and drug out and left in the alley. You know, I really didn't know what to expect. So, because YouTube wasn't even around then, so I didn't know what to go search. Right. So I'm really dating myself by saying
that's okay. Everybody knows. Everybody knows how old I am. So
so I called Nathan, and Nathan Ziegler,
yep.
And he had Gracie, Arizona. It's a tiny little building on Thomas and 24th Street.
Yeah.
And I show up there, and he was so warm and friendly, and I think you've met him, right?
Yes, absolutely. He's a great guy.
Super nice guy.
Great guy.
Which 99% of jiu-jitsu guys are.
Yep.
It's, it's funny because most jiu-jitsu guys could rip your head clean off.
Yeah.
But they're the most polite guys you'll ever meet.
Yeah.
They're the nicest people.
Yeah. So Jay Page has said once, says, if you don't like somebody in your academy, just wait.
Yeah.
They'll leave.
All
the assholes leave.
Yeah. The shit flows to the top. It really does. But so I went in there and I trained, and I didn't get beat up and left in the alley, and I've been with him ever since. I was his first. Well, I think technically I was his first person to go from white to black belt with him. There's another one, Heath, who used to train with us, but I might be wrong about this. I think he came to Nathan as a couple stripe white belt or a blue belt at the time. So
so you're day one all the way to now.
As far as I know, I think I was the first one till now, his first technical black belt.
Yeah, so you're now a 4-stripe black belt. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
It's it's weird.
It's a lifelong pursuit, man. It's so freaking cool.
I remember, and you're seeing this too. And congratulations on yours, by the way.
Thank you.
You got yours in like record time.
I don't know about record time.
You make us old dudes. I'm like, what the fuck? But I remember when Greg Holmes, another one of our instructors there, got his black belt. I think I was still like a purple belt, or maybe I just got my brown. And I was like, oh, okay, you reached the mountaintop. You're done. And I remember seeing him in the back room studying and watching Ryan Hall DVDs.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And he said, I'm learning his stuff. I'm like, oh, like I thought, like once you got the belt, like you could just chill. It was like like a car you finally bought. You know, it's like, oh, I got the car. No, it's like now it's even worse.
Yeah.
You know, as you know, it's now you got a little bit bigger of a target, and guys want to push you a little harder.
And the people that you compete with, especially well, I shouldn't say especially, but once you get to the black belt level, the mistakes are so few that you're not going to get away with a mistake. And that's something
100%.
A mutual friend of ours, Mike Kaplan.
Yeah.
Mike Kaplan and I were talking. Yeah, he's awesome. After our matches, gosh, I can't remember which one. I think you submitted me at one of the local ones. It was a gi tournament, and you got me with your freaking Kimura.
Oh, that was March 3rd, 20. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. I don't know what date that was. I have no idea. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, but we're talking, and I literally told him, I was like, I said, he is so fundamentally sound that I'm not going to get away with mistakes, and that's what I loved about it. I'm not saying that is a bad thing, but seriously, like at blue belt, at purple belt, at brown belt, depending on where the brown belt came from. But once I hit black belt, man, I mean, there's you, and there's like my very first match was a guy that was like a 2-time world champion.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was the Phoenix Open. I competed 3 days after I got my black belt. Oh. Bad idea.
Well, it's funny. I did the same thing.
Did you?
Yeah. And I got wrecked.
Yeah. So I won my first match. By DQ.
That's good. You did better than I did.
By DQ.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, you still won.
Yeah. And then my second match, I don't research the fighters. I'll ask around, but I never watch film on them. I don't want to know. I just want to be in there and I want to feel it. But the second guy I fought was a guy named Sidney Silva. Do you know Sidney?
No, I don't.
He's a Hickson Gracie black belt, and he's also a black belt in judo, national champion. That was my second match at black belt, dude. Yeah. So it was a long match.
It was a long match.
It was a long match.
How did it end up?
It was 4-4. He won by advantage.
Dude, that's
2 sweeps
incredible.
Each. Yeah, 2 sweeps each. Yeah. Dude, the adrenaline was like, I didn't have anything left.
Nothing left.
I had nothing left after that match. The adrenaline dump was amazing, man. But yeah. Yeah, but tell me about coming up coming up with Gracie, Arizona. You said it was a small place on Thomas and 24th.
Yeah, it was a small place. I think when I started, so we didn't, and I tell the new guys, so when we do like we do our competition classes like on Tuesdays. We do what we call war rounds on Monday night.
Okay.
And then it's basically all the brown belts and black belts just go in a room and fight to the death. You start on your feet and just try to murder each other.
Awesome.
And then Tuesday nights and Thursday night, we do like more of a competition class where we include everybody and start on the feet and do all that. But coming up, now we've got, I want to say like 20 black belts or something like that. Maybe not that many, maybe like 15. I actually have to go through and count them.
But are they all under Nathan?
Yes.
Wow,
yeah, pretty much.
Cool.
Pretty much. When I started though, I think Gustavo and Megaton, I think, were the only 2 black belts at the time. I started in 2002, in June of 2002. So I think those 2 were the only. Nathan was like a 2 or 3 stripe purple belt at the time.
Wow. And he had an academy of his
own? He had
own?
his academy, yeah. So when I started with him, it was that training with those guys. And he's a little bigger, so it was, our games are a little bit different.
Yeah.
So fortunately, I had a couple other smaller guys that were, kind of took me under their wing, and we kind of came up. And then, so we moved from there. We went across the street to, literally across the street. It was still Thomas 24th Street into a little bigger place. And then a few years after that, we moved to a bigger school on the 51 and McDowell, right across from that Food City right there.
Yeah.
He bought that entire building there. So
wow.
he just kept gradually building, and he's done a fantastic job, which I'm sure you're going to be doing too, because I've seen your school and stuff.
Yeah.
And then he sold that building, and now we're over on Indian School on 16th Street. So I hope I don't offend anybody by saying this, but those are not the best neighborhoods out there. We have some interesting people that will come by, because the whole wall is glass.
Yeah.
So they come walking by, and we've had we call them the bum challenges.
Yeah.
They walk in, hey, I want to fight you, and you're just like, dude, like, really, just go.
Dude,
we had a lady come up the other day, this homeless lady, and flashed herself and smashed him against the glass. This wasn't the other day; it was like 6 months ago. But
oh my gosh!
It was just like, what are we doing? But so we've moved from there. Now we're there. I think that was the question, right? Just how it came up.
Yeah.
And so now we're there, and COVID kind of, put a damper in that, because it shut everybody down.
Yeah.
But what it did for me, it was kind of a blessing in disguise, where because we couldn't train, Nathan owned that building on McDowell and the 51.
Yeah.
Which half of it was this enormous CrossFit gym.
Oh,
so
cool.
I don't know how many square feet, but it was huge. It was like 8,000 or 10,000 square feet. It was enormous, this place. It used to be a Salvation Army.
Okay.
So he had all this CrossFit equipment. So for a year, a little over a year and a half, my wife and I, because I couldn't do anything else, we would just go lift weights.
Awesome.
For 6 days a week.
Wow.
So I used to compete at 154 and below. And I watch those videos now, and I just go, oh my God.
You were little, dude.
I was little. And somebody told me they watched the video the other day, and I asked them which one. They pulled it up on their phone. And I'm looking at it. I go, oh my God. I have the body of like a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
It was crazy. So it's been a blessing for me, because one, being older, you know, I don't get hurt as often.
Yeah.
And I don't have to try as hard to do the same stuff that I was doing, 10 years ago with a lot less effort. So I can't advocate for dieting and strength training more, especially as we get older, because
agreed.
I mean, we just don't heal as fast as we used
to. We don't, and we don't recover as fast. So recovery plays a big role in that as well, right? Yeah. And I did a podcast with a guy named Trent Nestler.
Okay.
And if you don't know Trent, you should really look him up. He calls himself I think he's like the BJJ ACL guy.
Okay.
He's a PT.
Okay.
But his the stuff that he's doing is like next level, man. It's all state of the art. It's like his Instagram, he's very generous with his information on Instagram.
Oh, nice.
And his whole passion is to keep combat athletes on the mats.
Oh, cool.
That's his passion. So he works a lot with military guys, but mostly he's into combat athletes.
Okay.
So jiu-jitsu, MMA, stuff like that. And I highly recommend you check out his stuff, man. He's really good.
I'll have to remember to get his name from you before we leave.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I can look him up.
Definitely. So tell me about your training schedule. So do you ramp up for certain tournaments, or is this one that kind of catches your eye? Like, I'll do that one.
Yeah, it's kind of a mixture of both. So sometimes it depends on the size of it, and it depends on if you're doing it. Actually,
yeah, same here.
Literally,
same
the
here.
last 3 or 4 or 5 tournaments, it's been. Hey, is Alex going to do it?
Yeah.
And I go, if you're not doing it, I'll be honest, and I don't mean to offend anybody if anybody's listening. I kind of take my foot off the gas a little bit.
Yeah.
When you text me that one before the last one, or did I text you?
I think I just text you. I think I text you and I asked you if you were doing it.
Yeah.
And then you text me back after your training session saying you almost skipped it or something like that.
Yeah, because I remember where I was. I was sitting at the light. I had just left work, and I was sitting at the light at Warner and Priest.
Yeah.
And I was getting ready. And if I turn left, I was going to go get a massage or go home. And if I turn right, I get on the freeway and go to class. And when you text me, I was sitting at the light, and you said you're going to do it. And I was like, all right. So I swear to God, that's a true story. I turned right, and I went to class that night, and that's when I realized if you're going to do it, I gotta put my foot on the gas a little bit. So you've been awesome and motivating me for those, but for some of the other ones, I've kind of I did one, not the last one, or it was 2 or 3 tournaments ago. It was a Grand Canyon Games, I think.
Oh yeah,
but it was. I knew it was smaller, but I heard it was ran pretty well.
Okay.
And I was going to go there to coach some of the guys. Because it's kind of hard for me to get off on a Saturday, Sunday because the business I'm in, I work the weekend. So I was there, and they had taken me off I signed up for it, but they had taken me off of it because I didn't, check in or whatever.
Oh,
I was just there, just the coach, and I'm just looking around. You know how you get when you get to tournaments, it kind of gives you that bug again. I go, okay, I'll do it. So I walked over to the table of the guys and was like, hey, is it any chance I can get in mine? They go, oh yeah, sure. And that would never happen at IBJJF or a side. Never happen. Yeah. But at this tournament, they were just like, sure. And I jumped in and I had 2 matches, I think, and did okay. And but yeah, so sometimes I just kind of and then other times like this last one I was ready to go. The one on the 10th when we go to the Worlds, obviously you better be ready for that one.
Better be ready.
You're going to get run over.
Yeah.
So yeah, to answer your question, there's some I take more seriously than others.
Yeah. Yeah, and when I think about, Gracie Jiu Jitsu schools, I always think about like very traditional, very, gi oriented stuff. But your no-gi game is legit, man. Do you guys do a lot of no-gi in your academy?
We change it. As a matter of fact, last night after War Rounds, we were going to see who was going to go because Paul Nava is actually the one talking to him at the tournament.
Yeah.
I saw him getting a massage, so I walked by and started like pointing at him, like, "Dude, what are you doing?" Like making fun of him a little bit, and he was like, "Hey,
Yeah.
So we chatted for a minute or two afterwards, and I didn't even know that the no-gi Worlds were in December. I thought the one locally was the only one. I just didn't even check it. So that's when I decided to go. So last night I was talking to some of the guys. I'm like, hey, there might not be anybody at this local tournament.
Yeah, I'll do it if you do it.
This local one?
Yeah.
It's the same day, though, isn't it?
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
No.
No, it's December 10th, and then the IBJJF one. Yeah, so you got to pick or choose. Yeah. So I was going to do both, like if it was to do. But, so a few of the black belts said that they would go do it.
Okay.
So I said, all right, we're going to do it. So we changed our War Rounds. It's been gi, get ready, and then we're changing it to no-gi now.
Perfect.
So we change it back and forth. And I used to do a lot more no-gi, especially when I was doing MMA. Yeah. Because obviously, I'm not going to try to be Royce and go there, do old school versus new school.
Yeah. How long did you do MMA?
I did it, I think my first one, I want to say, don't quote me on this, but I think it was like 2007, I think. And then my last one, I want to say it was like 2010.
Okay.
So just a few years.
Pretty good run.
Yeah. I was under no illusion that I was going to be, Conor McGregor or anything like that. The only reason I did it was, one, I love the sport. And I still watch. I'm a dork for MMA. I love watching
cool,
this
man.
weekend coming up. I couldn't be more excited for this card coming up.
Yeah.
But I just did it to just kind of see how I would do.
Yeah.
Because our school originally was very heavy focused on the self-defense stuff. Mm-hmm. And then obviously it grew more into the sports stuff. But so I was like, I just want to kind of see what would happen.
Yeah.
Went into my first one and won. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll do another one.
Yeah.
I won, and I was like, oh, okay. So I literally, in my mind, was never going to quit my job to do it, or anything. Like, especially at my age. I think I was like 33 at the time or whatever.
Yeah.
So I just kept going until I lost one, and then that was it. And I finished with a record of 7-1.
Perfect.
And it was done. I was just like, everyone goes, well, why'd you quit after you lost? I go, because I was only doing it until I lost. Yeah. So, I really,
no way.
I hated it. Like, everyone thinks, because of what we do, that we must like violence. Like, I hate violence.
Yeah.
I apologize if I swear here and there.
No, I'm totally good with that.
But I don't like violence. Yeah. I think there's a place for it.
Sure.
I think there's times where, it definitely calls for it, but I don't like I just don't like violence.
Yeah.
Really, in the sense of, thinking I'm a tough guy, I'm going to smack you in your mouth.
Right.
None of that. I just like the competitive nature of it because I'm competitive. So I just wanted to do it to feel it. And I'm glad I did. Yeah. Because it gave me a perspective of that world. And then going back to jiu-jitsu, it's a lot more gentle than MMA.
Absolutely, man.
That's why I don't get as nervous for jiu-jitsu tournaments as I used to, because I don't have to worry about Alex kicking me in the mouth or slamming me on my head on purpose. Whereas, you catch me in a omoplata or something, or I can tap. That's easy. Or I go to sleep. One of the two. Whereas
one of the two. Yeah.
MMA, I may lose some teeth. I get my skull cracked. It's just a whole nother animal. So it was fun, but it's a young man's game.
Sure. And there's things that happen that are they're not they're within the rule set, like they're okay, but it's kind of not okay at the same time. Like somebody is clearly knocked out. Clearly, they get caught with a good right hand. They're on their way down, and the guy's ready to pounce on them again, and the referee doesn't have time to get in between, and they get another couple shots in. Where they're passed out. And I guess it's a good thing that they're passed out, right? Because it kind of helps, but
and doesn't even know it happened.
But it's still a little brain damage that happens in there. So that's pretty rough.
And that was part of the thing with the MMA too. Is I was a purple belt at the time, so I felt my ground game was good enough against most of the people I was going to fight. So I backed off on my jiu-jitsu training, which was at the time 2-a-days, like 5 and sometimes 6 days a week.
Wow.
So I started doing boxing. Just went to a boxing gym for 2 or 3 times a week, and then I went to a Muay Thai gym. And the boxing, I was watching these little kids, like these 5-year-olds that were amazing. Like I was like, that kid would whoop my ass, but they threw them in the ring with headgear, and they're just beating the piss out of each other.
Oh my gosh!
And I'm like, this kid, he's like 5 years old. He's going to be, he's going to have so much brain damage. So I never did any boxing sparring. Because I'm dumb enough as it is. I didn't want to lose any more brain cells. You know, so I never did any boxing sparring. When we did our MMA training, it was heavily jiu-jitsu, and when we got to the ground, it was like light little taps and stuff. I was not a big fan of the sparring stuff. So
let's go back for a second on your when you started jiu-jitsu at Gracie, Arizona. How many students did Nathan have at the time?
Maybe 30.
Right.
Maybe. I mean,
there weren't a lot of people doing jiu-jitsu then.
Yeah, there was not a lot. I think Gustavo probably had the biggest school at the time. Megaton. I heard, and I heard he only had like 10 or something. So he didn't have a lot, and all his guys were like super hardcore. And then when we moved, it just incrementally grew. And I think when we were at the big school before COVID, before he sold the building, I want to say we had like over 300.
Wow.
Like he had quite a few.
That's great.
That's with kids. Yeah. So he was doing pretty well with it. And I really believe that it's not because, our technique is better or any of that shit. I mean, you could throw a rock and hit a fantastic jiu-jitsu guy from here. I think it's the way you treat people and make them feel welcome and stuff like that. It's not a knucklehead gym, which I think we both know a couple schools that are that way. I'm not going to mention any names on camera.
Don't worry, we can edit it out.
Okay.
Fire away.
So I think we've all heard of.
There's been a few.
A few, I'll just leave it at that. Where guys will go in there and they're throwing white belts in, fighting 2 brown belts. Like, what does that do?
Why?
It's so dumb. But, so it's really just how you treat people, and it really is the camaraderie and the respect that everybody has for everybody. There's no politics. There's no walking in there. No one's talking about how they, having bad days with their wife or their boyfriend's a psychopath or any of that. It's just everyone goes in there. We got the same hobby. And we just want to do that and kill each other and go home in one piece. So,
that's it. Yeah, man. Yeah, and I think the whole sense of community is a big deal. We talk about this often on the podcast. It's like, I don't care who you are or what you like to do, be part of a community. The jiu-jitsu community is amazing because when something happens and someone needs help, the whole community just rallies. And there's never a shortage of people willing to, step up and have a seminar and raise money or, have a giant open mat, raise money, and it makes you like, you kind of get lost in that your 4 walls, you know what I mean? Because you got work, you got jiu-jitsu, you got family, and that's just kind of how your life works. And then something tragic happens, and oh my gosh, these people need help. I'm in, and then you end up at this other academy, and the place is full of people that you don't get to see other than tournaments, and that's a good feeling, man.
That's what I love about it. My wife will still tease me. She'll watch MMA with me. I don't watch jiu-jitsu matches in front of her because those can be a little boring. MMA is a little more exciting. There's more stuff going on. But she'll be a good sport and she'll sit there and watch it with me. And then, let's say I don't know if you watch a lot of MMA or not.
A little bit,
So you'll have like Robbie Lawler and the dude from Canada, Corey. I can't think of his name, but anyway, these two literally about killed each other. Like murder, blood's everywhere, and that part's a little hard to watch, but afterwards, like for 5 rounds, they literally beat the piss out of each other. They came over, they're hugging each other, they're giving each other respect, and I tell my wife all the time after every one, I go, see, that's what I love about the sport. I love that two guys just tried to almost literally kill each other. And then afterwards, there's that love and respect.
Yep.
And then they'll see each other in a bar, and there's no shit talking. It's
No.
like, hey, bro, how you been?
That's
It's
it.
like you and I, we
Yep.
compete. Like, we try to murder each other on the map.
Yep.
And then afterwards, we're in your house having a conversation. You know, that's
Yeah.
what I love about it. And my wife
Yeah.
goes, I know you say this every time
Yeah.
you see a fight, you know, but I can't say it enough. I love that everybody, it brings people together.
Yeah.
I tell guys at work when they ask me about it, because they don't understand. They don't do
Sure.
this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I go, there's nothing like being in a room full of guys that can kill you
Mm-hmm.
with their bare hands, that you literally just sit around and just, you love them to death.
Yeah.
It's just, that's why I've done it for so long. Like, even, you know, on days where I'm just like, I just need to take a month off. I'm like, the camaraderie is kind of what brings
Yeah,
me back to,
absolutely.
you know, so it's, you know, I don't know. I get a little long-winded
No,
sometimes.
that's good. That's good stuff, man.
I agree with you 100%. I love how everybody, you know, even people from other schools
Yep.
can come together and train together and be friends without, you know, the 1985 mentality where, hey, Alex, my karate school is better than your karate school, bro. Our Shotokan's better than yours.
Yeah,
you know, that kind
yeah.
of stuff.
Yeah, man.
But I love it. I love it.
Yeah. So let's talk about when you got your black belt. Who presented your black belt? How did that all work? Because this is a little. I'm not dating you. I'm just saying.
It sounds like you're about to date me.
I'm just saying.
That's like saying, hey, I don't want to say anything offensive, but I'm about to say some offensive shit.
With all due respect.
with all due respect.
Yeah. What year was that? What year did
It
you?
was 2012.
Okay.
January 2012, I think.
Nice.
So 9.5 years, which was a lot longer than it took you to get yours.
Yeah.
Little shout out to you on that.
Thank you.
Helson Gracie comes in. So he, at the time, you know, he's gone through some personal stuff, but he at the time was coming pretty often. Like,
Okay.
not every month, but I want to say like every other month. So he was coming in and spot checking things, and but ultimately he's the one that came down and did the ceremony and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, it's Nathan is pretty much the one that grades everybody. And
Okay.
Nelson's just kind of the
he's
presenter.
He's the figurehead, right?
Yeah.
So did you guys have like was there any testing involved, or was it all like, you know, based on your you know, Nathan's like thumbs up, or how was that? How did that work?
Both.
Okay.
So the Helson and the Royce and most of that stuff, they grade you on their self-defense.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is heavily predicated on the self-defense.
Okay.
So the jiu-jitsu aspect, the sport stuff, Helson, yeah, you have a seminar with Helson, and about half of it is him talking about politics with the IBJJF and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And he's got great stories. He's
bet.
a interesting character to listen to. He's got some stories about back in his day in Brazil and all the fights and all that stuff. But you know, half of his seminar will be it's all self-defense for the most part, and then a lot of talking.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's when you test for your black belt now, we primarily test them. Like, we have a guy that's testing Saturday. His name is Sai. Jiu-jitsu is great. He should have been a black belt a while back, but to get your actual certification and your placard and all that stuff from Helson, you got to get the self-defense stuff down. So he actually flies in from Hawaii and tests them, and it's not a given where he's like, you know, just because I flew down and
and you're a good guy.
It doesn't work that way. Like, he's failed people before.
Wow.
He actually failed me once.
No
so
kidding.
yeah. So on the
Wow.
self-defense stuff, I think I got pretty nervous, and I think I rushed through it, and probably didn't know it as well as I thought I did.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, maybe next time.
I think that's a good thing, though.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
I think
think
it's you know, it makes you appreciate, you know, what you have even more, and it makes other people look at, holy crap, Doug can't pass. I better work on my stuff. You know what I mean? So that's kind of cool. You know, keeps everybody on their toes.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the guys that do it now, you know, they do it a lot more often than I do. I focus more heavily on the sports stuff. And, if he'll fail you.
Wow.
If you don't know the self-defense stuff, he'll shoot you down.
Yeah. And do you have a relationship with Helson, or?
Not so much.
Okay.
Nathan pretty much handles all that stuff. I mean,
Gotcha.
of course, when he shows up, you know, I've been under him for 20 years, but he and I are not hanging out at the clubs or anything like that.
Yeah.
But he knows my name, and he comes down and we hang out and stuff like
That's
that.
cool.
But we all go to dinner after the seminars and stuff like that. But he's not staying the night at my house or anything.
Right.
That. He stays with Nathan and stuff.
Yeah.
So.
And where did Nathan? How did Nathan start jiu-jitsu? When did he start jiu-jitsu? If you were like,
Nathan, I think has been doing it. I want to say he's been doing it like 7 years longer than me, 7 or 8 years longer. So he's been doing it like him and Greg. Do you know Greg Holmes?
Yeah.
So Greg and him, those two started under Royce.
Okay.
With Mark Lehman. You remember Mark Lehman out of Vegas?
Yeah.
All those guys out there?
Yeah.
Those three started together under Royce. And then Lehman went off somewhere and I think started his own deal in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
Greg kind of went and did his thing, and then Nathan stayed under Helson.
Yeah.
Or started with Helson, and I think Greg stayed with Royce for a little while. Or some of those details might be a little off, but they all started together. And I want to say it was like back in like 96 or 95 or something like that.
Back in the day, yeah.
And that's been my only thing about jiu-jitsu, that my only regret is, God, I just wish I had known then. Like, I wish I could have started earlier.
Yeah.
But if that's my only regret, then I think I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah.
So
actually, my first exposure to jiu-jitsu, and looking back, I didn't know what it was at the time, but looking back, I was like, oh yeah, that's got to be it. I was in the military, and two of my roommates were wrestlers in high school, so there was a wrestling room at the gym, like a little mat space. So they would go over there and they'd show me some wrestling stuff, and we'd go and beat the crap out of each other. Well, there was one guy that no one liked to wrestle with because he'll hurt your arms.
Oh, was he a jiu-jitsu guy?
He was a jiu-jitsu
guy.
Really? Yeah. So I remember he was from California, really soft-spoken guy, but nobody wanted to wrestle with him because he'd hurt your arms.
Oh,
that's what they said.
really?
So he was throwing arm bars and all kinds of stuff.
Oh, wow. So how long have you been doing jiu-jitsu now?
I started in 2013.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was doing triathlon up until 2011, and I just quit. I just quit doing it. I did a full distance try out in Henderson. Henderson's really hilly, by the way. Holy crap.
Well, the
but
fact that you did a triathlon is amazing. I remember hearing one of your podcasts, and I think you were I don't know who it was with, but you were talking about a triathlon. I was like, this fucking guy. I'm like, that explains some of that cardio. Like, after I watched some of our matches, after you and I stand up, like this last one, you had me in that omoplata, and when I went backwards and you turtled and I tried to come around, but we were out of bounds.
Yeah.
We stood up. I was like, I'm a little tired. And you just like, all right, let's go. I was like, this fucking guy. Like, I was like, and then I heard the triathlon. I go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, it makes sense now. So.
It's more like, so I always said that my superpower when I was in the military was I could do menial tasks for a long period of time. I could, if they told me here's a piece of metal, I need you to shine it for 4 hours. Awesome. I'll just sit there and my brain will go.
You got OCD like that?
Yes. And I can just do it. So riding a bike for a long time, running for a long time, I can just do it. I don't get bored.
You get that runner's high?
I don't know. I don't know if it's a high. I'm like, it's like, okay, I've been running for a freaking while, when I was actually training for that triathlon, I would tell my friends, meet them or whatever. I'd be like, okay, yeah, I got a short run today. I'll just meet you after. And one of them asked me, one of them asked me, hey, what's a short run for you? I was like, okay, this is going to sound pompous, but anything under 10 miles.
Wow.
That was a short run.
Dude, I don't think I could. I feel like I'm in probably the best shape I've been in a long time, and I don't think I could run 10 miles.
It's not good for you, though.
Yeah.
It can't be. Like, it's more conditioning. You know what I mean? You're not, anybody who runs like 10Ks is not in better shape than anybody who runs marathons. The marathon guy's just conditioned.
So speaking of that, then let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
How do you feel about long distance running? Let's say getting ready for the Worlds coming up. Would you recommend? What do you think about guys who go, no, I run 10 miles a day, or the guys that do short sprints every day?
They both have their place. Yeah. So if I would make a recommendation, if someone's looking to do like, okay, they want to ramp up to be that high intensity athlete. One thing we did in triathlon, and I don't know if they still do it, it probably still does, but we would do like a base cardio period where you don't get your heart rate above 140. Okay. So you're just riding a bike for like 4 hours and you keep your heart rate at the 140 or lower. Okay. And it's like, you're just riding, talking shit, just a casual ride, but just for a long period. So what that does is it builds a cardio base that you can build off of. Okay. So I couldn't start running hills right now. You know what I mean? Like my heart would just, I wouldn't be able to get my heart rate back down to where I needed it. You know what I mean? Okay. So whenever I'm doing cardio, like my cardio is on the rower and I never get my heart rate above 140, half hour, 140. And then, that way when I'm in the academy and I'm pushing myself hard, like my heart rate will spike and then it'll start coming down nice and low. And that it applies in jiu-jitsu when you finish a round, right? And you're going to get ready for the next round. Man, by the time my next round starts, my heart rate's under 100 beats per minute. You know what I mean?
That's good that you can control it like that.
Yeah. Yeah. But that comes from having that cardio base. Mm-hmm. So it's two very different, and they both have their place. But if I were to recommend something, start with that cardio base and then work your way up to the sprints and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. See, I started doing a lot more of the sprint stuff because when I was doing MMA and stuff, I used to run, 3 and 4 and 5 miles at a slow pace.
Yeah.
And I realized I wasn't doing any sprints. I mean, I had endurance where you and I could wrestle for 3 hours, and I wouldn't get tired. But when I had those, high intensity, sprint, scrambles and stuff like that, like it would just drain me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I started doing a lot more. So I started running a lot less, and I'll run like a mile, if that.
Yeah.
But in doing that, I'm doing a lot more like, 20-yard sprints, like just hard as I can push.
Yep.
I try to mix the two. And so I always wonder what, guys like that, like you would do. Because obviously you're a high level athlete, especially doing triathlons and shit. I mean, I couldn't do a triathlon.
Yeah. It's no, you could. Like I said, it's a conditioning thing. One thing I did, and still to this day I do it, but I would never sign up for a race I was ready for. So I did one sprint triathlon. It was the very first one. It was on a mountain bike. It was off of like Papago Park, just down in Tempe. And and when I got done with that, I was like, oh, I'll do an Olympic distance triathlon. It's just like twice that, right? So I did that. I did a couple of those. And then I was like, oh, I'll just do like a half Ironman. So they have one in Tempe, and I did one in Flagstaff. And that one's, it's 70 miles total, right? So you got the swim, bike, run.
I'm already tired.
Yeah, right. So basically the half is literally half of everything. So it's 1.2 mile swim, and then it's a.
Is that like 56, in the ocean or like a lake or something?
Yeah, mostly they're in lakes.
Okay.
Yeah, and then it's a 56 mile bike ride, and then a half marathon, and then I did a full distance triathlon. That's 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, and then a marathon at the end. So So, and again, I was never ready for any of those. When I signed up for them, it wasn't like, it was like, all right, let's see what I can do.
Did you finish?
Yeah. Yeah. So wow. when I signed up for the full distance, I didn't know like how to do it. I didn't know how to train for it. And the only thing I'd read, it was like, you got to do anything between like 15 and 20 hours of training per week. That's what you got to commit to. And I'm like, all right, I can do that. So I hired a coach who would just write out my programs. And this guy named Ron, really cool dude, high level athlete, cyclist, triathlete, you name it. And so I met with him, and he says, he goes, hey, what race did you sign up for? I was like, oh, Silverman in Henderson, because all the Ironman races sell out in minutes.
Okay.
So you can't just pick an Ironman tomorrow and sign up for it. Like there's a process, right? So this particular race wasn't sold out. I was like, shit, man, I'm in. So I signed up, right? And then I go to meet with Ron, and he gave me the weirdest look when I told him what race I was doing. He's like, we've only got 5 months. I'm like, yeah, I think
5 months.
Yeah.
Sounds long enough. Yeah.
Dude, it was at the time, it was the hardest full distance triathlon in North America.
Because you said Henderson's like very hilly and stuff too,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Oh.
So if you do like a bike race, like an amateur bike race at local type of thing, and a decent one will have about 2,000 feet of climbing. A couple hills. A hard one will have about 5,000 to 6,000. The race in Henderson had 10,000 feet of climbing on the bike. 10,000, dude. And I didn't know. Yeah. Like I just signed up because it wasn't sold out. Yeah. And then the run course was super hilly as well. So it was a tough day. Damn. It was a long day, dude.
Day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have killed me.
No, no, I'm telling you, you could do it. You're stubborn enough. You could do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But let me ask you. Thank you, man. So let me ask you. With all the time, 20 years of jiu-jitsu, man. Let's talk about injuries. What has been the most significant one? And has there been one that has made you like think, like really think about your jiu-jitsu life and career?
No, to answer that part, no, nothing's ever been severe enough where where I'm like, I'm gonna stop jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. Okay.
When I met my first wife,
yeah,
like I was telling you before, she was a physician, so we would travel a lot for like our medical conferences and stuff. So our time together would be separated by like her stuff, and then mine was jiu-jitsu. I was just crazy, just saturated in the jiu-jitsu world. Like we would go on vacations, and I would go train in schools and stuff. That became a point of contention with us because she was like, "You can't, we need this time together."
Yeah,
but I needed that
outlet
to keep me from losing my mind.
Yeah.
So it became a little bit of a point of contention. And fortunately, with my current wife, she we talked about it when I first got together. I'm like, look, I do this. It's what I do.
Yeah.
And she's been great. Never once has she ever been, oh, don't go to class and spend time with me. Not a single time.
Wow.
She's great. What was the question again? Sorry.
No, we were talking about injuries. And if you had something that made you want to quit.
Yeah, so there's never been anything that I've had some doozies, but nothing. I've been pretty lucky. Nothing drastic. In my last MMA fight, I like to say that's the reason I lost was my rib popped out.
Oh yeah.
So I was walking around about 155 pounds at the time. So when I would fight, I was kind of like you with your races, where I would just sign up for a fight like 3 weeks out. I would just text. I would text the guy and be like, "Hey, I just want to do a fight," because I knew if I had 3 months, it would drive me crazy knowing that I got this going on for 3 months.
Yeah.
So I would sign up 3 weeks out or 4 weeks out and get in pretty decent shape. But at my last one, I had to cut to 135 pounds.
Oh my gosh!
And I don't know if you know Santino DeFranco, but he's Henry Cejudo. It's his striking coach.
Okay.
So Santino's taught some big dogs. Like he used to help Ben Henderson get ready for some of his fights. He taught Efren Escudero, who won the Ultimate Fighter years ago. So he's had some real studs go through his gym.
Yeah.
And I was not one of them, but he cornered me from my last fight.
Okay.
And he told me, he's like, look, hey, if we do this fight, maybe when the UFC comes to Phoenix, which was back then, he goes, maybe we might be able to get you on the prelims, or it was something.
Wow.
There was nothing concrete, but it was just kind of a conversation we were having.
Yeah.
He goes, but they need people at 135. I was like, oh, okay, I'll do that. So I did my damnedest to get down to 135, and some headaches came up the morning of. We flew in the night before. It was at New Mexico with Greg Jackson.
Okay.
It was his promotion.
Yeah.
Which was run great. We fly in the night before, do a little quick videotaped interview and this and that, and then I go to bed, and at the time I was about 141 pounds. So I was like, all right, no problem, 4 or 5 pounds. I'll be good.
Yeah.
I wake up 145. I was like, oh, what the fuck? And I remember, I don't know. I didn't eat anything. I ate some lettuce, I think. So I have no idea what happened. All I can think of was the scale was wrong. The scale had to be wrong. So I remember getting on the scale at the gym, and I looked at Santino when it popped up to 140. It was hovering between 145 and 146. I had to be at 135 in like 5 hours.
Holy crap.
So I remember looking at him, and he's been through all. He fought in the UFC. He's seen it all, done it all. And I remember just looking at him. I looked at him as for like a point of reference, like we got this, we good, right? And he was like this. Yeah, I was like, what is that? Like, why you're supposed to be? You're supposed to lie to me. And he was like, oh, all right. He's like, here we go. So I ended up barely making the weight. Got to 136 because in New Mexico they give you the point or the pound leeway. But it had weakened my body so much so we go out in the first round and we have this like highlight reel back and forth round. It was amazing. And about the last 10 seconds of it, I wrap his head up and grab his arm. I'm going to try to throw him, because I think I'm Mr. Judo all of a sudden. And as I throw him, I wrenched so hard my rib had popped out. Yeah. And you can still see it to this day. It never came back. And so when I fell down, the round was over. And you can see me on the camera. I'm walking back and I'm doing this. And Santino's like, you want to call it? And I'm like, no, because maybe I'll go out there and get lucky. Or something. I mean, in my head, I was thinking, I want to quit.
Puncher's chance.
So, and none of that happened. I went out, threw a leg kick. He caught it, threw me on the ground, jumped on top of me, beat the shit out of me about 5 seconds before the ref jumped in and stopped it. And that was my TKO loss. So, all my hopes that I thought maybe I'd get him with a punch, none of it even came close. Like, he literally ragdolled me on the ground, beat my ass. So, But, so that was the rib. And then the knee occasionally, mine and yours last match, speaking when you got me in that omoplata, and when we went back, and then you turtled as I was posting with my left leg to roll you backwards, my knee buckled inward and just popped a little.
Yeah.
So the next day we left for a cruise, and I just kind of stayed off it for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
And it's stable, which is good. It's got a little stinger in there still. Just little annoying stuff like that, but the rib was probably the worst.
Okay.
Then we got the fingers that won't straighten.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, they're all.
This one won't straighten out, and there's just little stupid stuff. Like that.
Man.
So,
yeah,
no brain damage yet.
Yeah, no, thank goodness. But I've a lot of it's been on my in my legs. My shoulders have been pretty solid, elbows, all that other stuff. It's just been like a partial LCL, a meniscus tear. Broke my foot a couple times.
In jiu-jitsu?
In jiu-jitsu, yeah.
How do you break your foot? Your whole foot, not a toe?
So I held on to a ankle lock, or I didn't tap. I should have. And I just felt something go pop, and then I had a purple foot, and I was like, okay, that's not good.
So were the bones broken, or was it like cartilage and tendons?
It was just cartilage.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah. So it was okay.
Okay.
But I think the worst one I ever had was, even though I had to have surgery on my knee, I think the worst one I had was my groin pull. I pulled my groin when I was a white belt. I was a white belt tournament when they had the Vegas Open twice a year. Remember those?
Yeah.
So the mats that we used at our school at the time were puzzle mats, so they're very grippy.
I remember those. Yeah, those little rubbery
very
things.
Grippy.
Yeah.
And then at the tournaments, they have those really nice, Fujis or whatever they are, and they was really slippery.
Super slippery. I hate those things.
Yeah. So instead of, being smart and using my feet, I was trying to follow a guy with my knees, and then my knees went out, and I felt it go pop, pop, pop. And I was like, well, that's weird, right? And then
that didn't seem normal.
Yeah. So then going into the finals, I'm telling Amy, I was like, I don't think I can do this. Like, my groin is really bad. And Amy, typical Amy, she's like, if you don't do it, you're going to be miserable. And
she knows you. She's like, you're going to mope around here for a week. Yeah.
So I did it. I won the final.
Nice.
But I was purple from my knee to my belly button.
Oh, wow.
It was torn.
Did you have to have a surgery?
No, I had a doctor look at it, and he's like, it's really bad, but it'll heal. And so I laid off for a couple weeks, maybe three weeks or so, and then I joke because I say I had to. It cost me $5 to roll every time I rolled, because I'd have to get one of those self-adhesive elastic bandages, and I would go from the bottom of my knee around my waist back down, just all around the leg.
The ace bandage.
The ace bandage. So I could only use it one time, so it was about $5 each time I had to roll. So yeah, so
that would add up.
Yeah. So that was about the worst one.
I was worried about that, like because every once in a while, you guard and all that kind of stuff you're doing. Like I always wondered, like, God, I'm surprised I haven't pulled a groin or anything like that. But I had one that a lot of guys kind of cringe when I talk about, but it didn't stop me really from doing jiu-jitsu. I'm trying to think how to say this without being too crude on your
That's
website.
okay.
I basically broke my dick. So
all right, hang on. Before you continue, I always joke that when people put these headphones on, they become oversharers.
Yeah.
You won. You win.
So let me put this on before I. So what happened was, and I want to say I was probably a brown belt. Just a typical night of training, whatever. And I go through phases in my training where, for 6 months, like all I'll try to do is an arm bar. Even if other shit is like blatantly there, like a triangle, like, no, I want to stick with that arm bar because I want to get proficient in it.
Yeah.
And I've been on this Kimura thing for like 5 years now.
It's really good. It's really good. I can attest.
I'm so one-dimensional now.
No, you're not. But that Kimura is legit.
But so I go through it. Well, I was in the phase with these arm bars. And I don't even remember who it was, but I had somebody in an arm bar, and he was being a little stubborn, and I was being stubborn, and his arms doing this, and I'm trying to roll it, and looking back, I know what I was doing wrong, but my legs were I wasn't clamped down here, I wasn't controlling the wrist as much as I should. I was just thinking I was just going to get him. Well, the whole time his elbow is just grinding over everything. Didn't think much of it. You go home. Yeah, it's happened before. You go home and you got a little burning sensation down there.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm married, so I know I wasn't out being with people I shouldn't have been with. So I knew that it wasn't any of that. It wasn't like I was going to take a penicillin shot and get rid of it. But so the burning didn't go away.